I know many of you enjoy using these videos to help you fall asleep. So before you start to drift off, it would be great if you could leave a comment sharing where you're listening from around the world. If you're enjoying the episodes, don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Now, let's get cozy, settle in, and begin. I met my current girlfriend at the grave of my late wife. Now, I'm filled with regret and have no idea how to move forward. This all started with a tuna sandwich. Sounds strange, right? Here's what happened. Emma, my late wife, and I had our first date at a beach picnic. I asked if she liked tuna. She said yes, so I made sandwiches. During their first year, we had many picnics. Tuna was on the menu at least half the time. On our first anniversary, we returned to that beach spot. I handed her a sandwich, and that's when she confessed. I have to be honest, tuna is disgusting. I'd honestly rather eat it after it's passed through my system. No offense. She'd assumed she'd like it at first, but one bite in, she wanted to bleach her taste buds. Still, when she saw how carefully I'd made the sandwich with crusts cut off and pickles, she couldn't bring herself to hurt my feelings. We both laughed about it. For that, I'd always jokingly offer her the first bite of my tuna sandwich during our picnics. Emma died last Valentine's Day. She was rushing home because I'd cooked a romantic dinner. For 3 months, I barely left bed except to eat and use the bathroom. Then one sunny afternoon, I grabbed a picnic basket and drove to her resting place. Her grave is on a small hill beneath an elm tree. I laid out a blanket, unpacked lunch, and without thinking, offered a bite of my tuna sandwich to her headstone. I laughed genuinely for the first time since the accident. From then on, I kept returning on nice days. These quiet picnics brought me some peace. Over time, I got to know Harry, the groundskeeper. Then one day in August, as I spread out the blanket, a gust of wind caught it and blew it across a woman standing nearby. I ran over while she struggled to get free, eventually retrieving it. She looked like a cartoon heroine, blue eyes, curly black hair. Her name was Ruth. She was there visiting her late husband, Christian Mary. I remember the name because I thought, Merry Christmas. After that, I'd occasionally spot her near the same area when I visited Emma. We'd give each other polite waves. One afternoon, as I was packing up, she walked over. Mind if I walk you to the gate? She asked. Sure. On the way, she lightly touched Emma's grave and smiled. What's with the sandwiches? You always look like you're presenting your lunch to the tombstone. I told her the story. She smiled. That's sweet. Christian loved tuna too. Then she looked at me seriously. Do you think grief can be beautiful? Maybe. A breeze passed, and she playfully ducked, pretending to avoid another flying blanket. I laughed, then asked her if she wanted to get coffee. That night, Guilt gnawed at me. What kind of person flirts at his wife's grave? My friend said I hadn't done anything wrong. Even Harry gave me a nod. That lady's been coming here for years. I think you two would be good for each other. We started going for coffee. I shared my grief with her. I feel the same, she said. When I lost Christian, I thought something was broken inside me. She didn't often talk about him, and when she did, the details were vague. I figured some pain is to Ratu. Shared out one night. After a dinner date ran late, we ended up spending the night together. The next morning, I kissed her goodbye, shut the door, and slid to the floor, sobbing. Coffee dates were one thing. This felt like betrayal. I couldn't face Emma's grave. Months later, Ruth ran into trouble with her landlord, so I offered my place temporarily for a while. I moved forward. We even had a few picnics, but I never made tuna. Then Ruth asked how we'd spend Valentine's Day, the 1-year mark of Emma's accident. That hit me like a truck. Her grave was still freshly packed with soil. How could I be in another relationship? Already still, I figured I had to move on sometime. I came up with a plan. Visit Emma in the morning, then spend the afternoon with Ruth. Just need to let Emma know first, so I prepared a thoughtful picnic. The weather sucked, but I didn't care. Up at the grave, I broke down. I admitted everything, my relationship with Ruth, how I never planned to move on this quickly, and how sorry I was. Strangely enough, I felt like Emma would have understood. I had one last thing to do, visit Christian Mary's grave. He deserved to know I cared for Ruth, but when I checked the headstone, Ruth always stood near. I saw it belonged to a couple named Presley. No Christian. Confused, I asked Harry, the groundskeeper. He checked his records and led me further out, past where I'd ever seen Ruth go. Christian's grave was there, but the headstone said he died on October 6th, 2 months after my blanket blew across Ruth's face, meaning she'd been visiting a grave before he died. That night, I casually asked her, "Where's Christian buried?" She froze mid-bite. "Why? I thought I'd visit him till on Valentine's Day. He's further down the hill, but if he's further, I didn't like being too close. It made me feel sick." "All right, I get it," I said. Then after a beat, "What month did he pass? Was it March? Why are you interrogating me?" "I'm not. You have no idea how hard this is for me." She left the room after she went to bed. I searched online. I found a news article about a sailing accident. Christian Mary, 34, drowned near a jetty. Ruth claimed he fell while checking fishing gear. The date, August 6th, 2 months after she and I first met. I tried bringing it up again, but she'd either burst into tears or accuse me of prying. I felt stuck. She still visited the cemetery, so one day I followed her, disguised in sunglasses and a trench coat. I expected her to head to the hill. Instead, she walked around a lake and sat on a bench in a different section. Maybe it really was too painful to visit the grave, I thought. Then a bearded man joined her. They chatted comfortably, occasionally touched each other's arms, and shared a strange, hesitant kiss. I didn't confront them. My head was spinning. Did she fall out of love with me? Was he the reason she never talked about Christian? Oddly, I felt relieved, like I deserved it for moving on too soon after Emma. Later, Ruth returned home and kissed me as though nothing happened. I didn't confront her. Valentine's Day was around the corner, and I had enough on my plate. Maybe explaining everything to Emma would give me some clarity. That morning, I packed tuna sandwiches, coffee, and iced buns. As I left, Ruth stopped me, said there was a giant spider in the bathroom. I checked. No spider. "Guess it scurried off," she said with a smile, handing me my keys down at the grave. I couldn't hold it in. I confessed everything, meeting Ruth meeting someone else, and how lost I felt. Talking it out lifted a huge weight. I wiped my eyes, set up the picnic, and offered Emma the first bite. When I took a bite myself, something felt off. Not the taste, but the sensation. My chest clenched. I struggled to breathe. My hands trembled. I reached for the thermos, but my limbs felt heavy. I spat out the sandwich and collapsed on my back, gasping for air. Then I saw her, Ruth, standing above me. I gestured desperately, pointing to my throat. She just looked at me and then calmly shoved more tuna into my mouth. I bit her fingers. She didn't scream, just narrowed her eyes. She pinched my nose shut and raised another clump of tuna. "You're not the first," she whispered, "but you are the sweetest." That tuna story, it really touched me. Most men can't love the dead like you do, dead women. I glanced up. Emma's headstone was just above me. I bucked my hips. Ruth's forehead smacked into the stone. She fell, blood trickling down near the words "beloved wife." She groaned and rolled off me. Barely able to move, I tumbled down the hill. I landed in the middle of a funeral. Mourners screamed. Priest nearly called the cops until he saw my bloating face. The ambulance ride was a blur. When I woke up, nurses told me the first thing I asked was whether Emma could forgive me. Tests confirmed that tuna was laced with fentanyl in the basket. They found a fake suicide note addressed to Emma written in my handwriting. In it, I supposedly swore no woman could ever replace her. Turns out, the man Ruth met on the bench, Gavin, believed I had already died. She told him her last boyfriend committed suicide, and she visited his grave to grieve. She denies everything, of course, says I'm delusional, but as far as I can tell, Ruth preys on grieving men. A kind of black widow with a taste for tragedy. Police are still piecing things together. When I left the hospital, the first place I went was Emma's grave. Someone had left a tuna sandwich there. There's an extra hand in my kids' photos. He hired a professional photographer to take pictures of my kids. They're tough to photograph together like some version of the Heisenberg principle. Only one smiles at a time. I figured it was time to bring in a pro and stop swapping heads in Photoshop. For our holiday cards, the photo session itself went smoothly. We had a relaxed shoot in a wooded area. My son and daughter hugged, smiled. Post everything looked great, at least that's what I thought, until we got the photos back. While reviewing them, something caught my attention. "Hey Frank," I said, "doesn't it look like there are two hands here?" He leaned in. "Yeah, that's Isabella's and that one's Jack's." "No," I pointed. "Jack didn't put his arm around her. Remember?" He refused, and sure enough, Isabella had her hand near her shoulder, but beneath it was another hand. Jack's hand was clearly hanging by his side, nowhere near her. Maybe the photographer was trying to edit it to look like Jack had his arm around Isabella. Frank said, then forgot to remove his real hand. "I wish she told us." "It looks off," I said. The hand beneath Isabella's didn't look like a child's hand. It was too large. I started wondering where the photographer sourced her stock images. I kept scrolling through the pictures. One showed Jack finally hugging Isabella, both facing the camera, an ideal photo, except there was another hand. The fingers rested lightly over Jack's hand. Wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't already seen the first oddity. I called Frank over again. He laughed. "Guess she's using AI." "I don't think so," I said. "These are clearly Jack and Isabella. AI can't create that kind of detail. No, some tools let you upload real photos and make small edits, like for LinkedIn or background removal, but they often change things unintentionally. That feels like a big privacy issue," I said, heart racing. "I don't want our kids' faces in a database." I called the photographer Janice. Probably should have asked calmly, but I was upset and jumped straight into accusing her. "You had no right to upload our photos into an AI system." She sounded shaken. "I didn't. I promise. Please don't post a review. I can prove it." About an hour later, Janice came by. She showed us the original image files and metadata. On her computer, she even showed us the photos directly on her camera. The extra hand under Isabella's and the fingers on Jack's were there in the originals. Maybe she faked it somehow, but she seemed genuinely honest. After she left, I went through the album again. Those hands still didn't make sense. They had to be digital mistakes. What else could they be? We eventually put the kids to bed. Frank and I settled on the couch. I was still stuck on it. "It's just so strange," I said. "I know." An hour later, I went upstairs to check on the kids. I froze at Isabella's door. She was sprawled across the bed like usual, one arm hanging over the edge. Underneath the bed, another hand was holding hers. I screamed and turned on the lights, but nothing was there. Frank rushed in. I explained what I saw. He laughed nervously. "You're going to scare yourself to death," he said as he dropped to his knees and checked under the bed. Then the closet, then Jack's room. Nothing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept getting up to check on the kids. All I could think about were hands of thin bodies hiding beneath beds. Hands of strangers sneaking into homes, hands with no bodies at all crawling across the floor. Eventually, I dozed off at 3 a.m. I woke suddenly. The first thing I noticed was that Frank was holding my hand, something he never does in his sleep. I rolled over and realized the hand I was holding wasn't his. I screamed. The hand vanished under the covers. We searched everything, the room, the house, nothing, but my palm throbbed with pain. 5 red scratches ran across it, and they were bleeding. "I can't take this anymore," I said, trying to hold it together. My hand felt strange, numb, almost buzzing. While we waited for the police to arrive, I opened the security app and checked the cameras. No one had entered. No one had left. Everything looked normal. until I rewatched the footage from the day before us returning from the park. There was a hand on my shoulder, but Frank hadn't put his arm around me. My dad's podcast kept uploading after he died. I should have listened to the last one this night, always. That's something my dad used to say again and again, like a personal mantra. This night is always. Remember every detail. If you don't remember, you'll lose yourself. I used to think it was just a poetic phrase or maybe just a sign he was getting forgetful. When my mom passed away last year, he started a strange podcast. It was abstract, cryptic, almost philosophical. I figured it was just how he was processing grief. Was the only listener, and honestly, I thought he was just venting in his own way. I hadn't visited him in a while, and the guilt started creeping in, so I decided to drive out to see him. On the way, I played one of his newer podcast episodes. Like always, it began with, "This night is always. The day fades, the night returns again. But this night is different. The night stays. Remember it. Remember everything." It made me laugh a little. It was unsettling, sure, but it was still Dad. Goofy, soft-spoken, gentle Dad. The guy who used to sneak my broccoli off my plate when Mom wasn't looking. But lately, something about him had changed. He seemed nervous, like he was seeing something the rest of us couldn't. I pulled into his driveway around 6:30 p.m. The house was dark, blinds shut, not a single light on. I knocked, waited, nothing. That alone made me uneasy. My dad used to be a light sleeper. Even the faintest noise could wake him. But now, silence. Then my phone beeped. A new notification, new video. Do not enter the house, Richard's podcast. My stomach dropped. I tapped it. The video was grainy and shaky, clearly recorded on a phone. It showed a hallway I recognized, the hallway from my childhood home. No narration, just the sound of the air conditioner. Camera pointed down the dim hallway toward my parents' old bedroom. And the title, "Do Not Enter the House," didn't feel symbolic. It felt direct. He meant me, right now, outside his house. I should have turned around. I knew that, but I figured he was having some kind of breakdown. Maybe it was just a bad joke. So I opened the front door and forced it open. But it didn't budge. But inside, everything looked completely different. The lights were on. The blinds were up. The house smelled like Christmas, cinnamon, pine. Before I could react, a little boy ran up to me shouting, "Jim, come see what Mom got us." I froze. It was my younger brother David, but not the grown-up David. This was him at 7 years old. I blinked. This wasn't right. David is 30 for now. He led me to the Christmas tree, the same tree we had growing up. He sat next to the presents, smiling. "Did you see Mom?" he asked. "No," I said. "Not recently, think she got us candy canes again, David." I hesitated. "Do you know what YouTube is, huh?" He laughed. "What's that?" Something felt wrong. My stomach turned. This didn't feel like a dream. It was too specific, like my actual memories were being played back to me. Then I heard a sound, a heavy thud from upstairs, and I remembered that moment did really happen. That same Christmas, 26 years ago. Back then, I ignored it, but now something told me to follow it. I slowly walked up the stairs. Everything looked exactly as I remembered, like I was moving through my own mind. Another thud. At the top of the stairs stood my mom. "Jim, have you opened the presents yet?" she asked, smiling gently. "What was that sound?" She paused. Her smile faded just slightly. "Oh, that, just nothing." Then she turned away and vanished down the hall. I started to follow, but my phone rang. It was my real brother David. "Jim, where are you? You missed the funeral. People are starting to leave." I felt cold. "What do you mean?" "Dad's funeral. It's today. Are you okay?" And that's when I remembered. He died yesterday. I was supposed to go straight to the funeral, not the house. How did I forget something like that? I stumbled back downstairs. The lights were off now. The Christmas tree was gone. The warmth was gone. I rushed to the car and opened YouTube. The podcast completely wiped. Every episode gone. like they were never there. I made it to the funeral, but too late. Everyone had already left except David. Did you delete Dad's podcast? I asked him. He looked confused. What podcast? His YouTube channel. You didn't see any of the videos. Jim, Dad never had a podcast. I stood there, stunned. Then David looked directly at me, and I swear it wasn't his voice when he spoke. It was Dad's. But remember, Jim, this night is always. I thought my grandma's rules were superstitions, then I broke one. My first memory is of a dead man. I was 4. Morning fog curled around me. I looked up and saw him, hanging between pine trees, held by silver ropes like a trapped insect, covered in blood, his face frozen in horror, but mostly in death. Years later, when the memory returned out of nowhere, I asked my grandmother about it. Sometimes the forest gives, she said with a shrug, and sometimes it eats. At the time, I assumed she meant how our minds make up scary images in the woods, that the memory wasn't real. But now, I know she meant something else entirely. I live in a cabin deep in the woods. Gran calls it the Deep Woods. I'm sure it has another name, but she's never shared it, and by now, I've stopped wondering. It's always been just the two of us. No cousins, no friends dropping by. Parents either, or even a clear memory of them. For a while, I wondered if Gran had taken me as a baby and kept me hidden away. But our matching crooked noses and the way we both sneeze in sunlight made that seem unlikely. Besides, I'm not trapped. I go to town twice a week for school. Usually just Hollis and Jackson are there. Sometimes near if Dad allows. We have internet at home, free to explore the woods as much as I want, as long as I follow what Gran calls the rules. I've always thought of them as superstitions, like colon stomp. 3 times at both ends of every bridge, leave milk out at summer and winter solstice. Crush some berries before they ripen purple. Never leave a photo near an open window. Lock the doors before sunset. Unlock them before sunrise. To Gran, these are fixed laws like gravity to me. They seem more like habits. Rules in my mind have consequences. These just felt like tradition. As a child, I didn't question any of it. Rain made sense before I knew the water cycle. Rituals were just part of daily life. But as I grew up, I began to sort things out. What was a rule and what was a superstition? Don't touch the hot oven, clearly a rule. Walk 10 laps around the cabin every night before bed. That felt like a superstition. Even now, some aren't easy to categorize. Don't get me wrong, Gran is wonderful. She feeds me, sings to me, and taught me which plants sting and which heal. I couldn't have asked for better care. But there are parts of my childhood I still don't fully understand. Never get caught in the hail. She once said, I remember us sitting together watching hailstones bounce off pine needles. When the rain came, we'd hurry out to collect the icy pieces. I never figured out what she did with them. Dirty ice didn't seem useful. We also wrapped thread around trees. My clothes wore out, Gran would unravel them, and we'd bury the threads at the roots of pines. We called it yarning. I'd run around the trees, dizzy with laughter. Afterwards, we'd bury the threads together. Trees are forgetful, Gran would say. They need reminders or they lose their loyalty. Loyal to us? I asked. No, she replied, with a strange smile. Not to us. What were we doing? What was the purpose? Then there was the man in red. Every September 28th, like clockwork, he appears. Always in red shorts and a red shirt. Always exhausted. Always lost. Please. He says every year. I don't know where I am. Gran invites him in, gives him water, listens to his story. He claims to have gone hiking in the Sierras, got lost, ran out of food. He's been wandering, unsure for how long. This is the Deep Woods, Gran always tells him, pointing him toward town. Then he leaves, but next year he's back. Same clothes, same confusion. One year, while Gran was out, I asked him, what do you do when you're not here? He blinked, pardon. All year you're gone. What happens then? I don't. I'm not. His head jerked. His eyes blinked rapidly, like a glitch. Then he looked at me and I saw something I hadn't seen before. Not confusion, but hunger. Here you are, Gran said suddenly, walking back in. The man blinked again and the look was gone. Maybe I imagined it, maybe not. But there are a lot of things like that. Rituals that seem pointless, events that repeat without logic. It's been this way for as long as I can remember, just Gran. And me in our little house in the DEPWOOD dot until last week. I found a new void tree, I told Gran. She looked up from her dream catcher surprised. A pile of them sat on the table. Beside her, a void tree, she said. I haven't seen one in years. Just past the stream, in a grove of elms. She lit up, grabbed her tools, and followed me. I've looked up void trees online. Asked the other kids. No results, apparently. They only exist here. Red bark, black leaves. I've never liked them. They make me uneasy. But Gran's always thrilled to find one. Why don't we grow them ourselves? I once asked. They don't work like that, she said. When we reached the grove, she got straight to work. She drilled into the trunk, hammered in a spile, and hung a bucket to collect. Sap, well done, she told me. Young eyes see more. That's another strange thing void tree sap. Gran collects it all year, then stores it in the basement. Sometimes a jug disappears. I once tasted a drop. It was bitter. She was furious, made me wash my hand and lectured me. It's too valuable to waste, she said that this new tree had her excited. She checked on it daily. Some days I helped. Mostly she preferred to do it alone. Then on the 5th day she didn't come home. That wasn't like her. She always returned before sunset, especially for the nightly walk around the cabin. I checked her favorite places, the stream, the overlook. I was about to head to town, then thought of the void tree. She was unconscious when I found her. A gash on her head, a branch nearby. I tried waking her, lifting her. Nothing worked. I sprinted to town, yelling for help. It was hours before they brought her to the local clinic. She came to slowly, and I sat by her side. Juniper, she whispered. Hi, Gran, you're okay now. She smiled faintly. My head hurts. I remember going to the void tree. A branch hit you, but you'll be all right. Suddenly, she tensed. The cabin. Did we walk the circle? No, I said gently. You were hurt. There wasn't time. Is it dark? She looked out the window and panic filled her face. I'd never seen her like that. Go, she said. Go now. Walk around the house 10 times. Lock the door. You might still have time. Gran, I'm not leaving. Nothing's going to happen. We live here. This is our home. The Deepwood isn't a home, she interrupted. It's a stomach. Her nails dug into my hand. Please, go. So I did. She needed rest. That's what I told myself. The forest at night doesn't scare me. It's like walking to the fridge in the dark. Familiar, normal. When I reached the cabin, I considered skipping the ritual. I was exhausted, but I knew she'd ask, and I didn't want to lie. So I walked out once, twice, 3 times, 4, the usual path. I knew every tree and stone. 5. A branch snapped. I kept going. 6. Another sound. Heavier. 7. I felt it. Something was watching. Hello. I called. Silence. 8. I walked faster. Something moved. Heavy footsteps. Too close. 9. I ran. Something chased me. I didn't stop. I threw the door open and slammed it shut. I hadn't finished. Thump. Something hit the door. Scratching, clawing. I locked it. Then I remembered the back door. The sound circled the cabin. I sprinted to the back and locked it just in time. More pounding, more noise. I'm sorry, I whispered. The sound grew violent, then crack, and silence. I waited back against the door for what felt like forever, but it didn't return. At sunrise, I forced myself to unlock the door. A rule's a rule. In front, everything looked normal. Bird CHIRPED. Then I walked to the back. He was there. The man in red, strung up between trees by old clothing threads, mine. Ones we had buried. The threads didn't wrap around him, they pierced him. One ran straight through his forehead. His expression held terror, but also hunger. The same hunger I saw that day years ago. I stared at him for a long time, then I picked a bucket and walked back to the void tree. I live in a cabin in the forest. I used to say the heart of the forest, but that's not true anymore. There's a lot Gran never explained, but once she's home, I'll ask about the rules, about the rituals. But my first question will be this: if the Deepwood is a stomach, then what does it eat? The motel clerk told me not to uncover the mirrors. I should have listened that he had been on the road for, or as it felt like days. I needed rest, even if just for a couple of hours. So, when I saw a flashing vacancy sign off the freeway, I took it as a welcome break. $50 for the night. ID check, no fuss, but the woman behind the desk gave me one warning. She looked to be in her late 80s, gray hair frizzed out like she'd been shocked. Thick glasses held together by scotch tape. As she handed me a silver key, she leaned forward and said, "Keep the mirrors covered. Don't take the sheets off." I paused. No mirrors. What if I need? Doesn't matter what you need, Missy, she couldn't. Mirrors stay covered. You'll thank me later. Then she returned to her magazine. Room 3 to the left. Sleep well, she called out as I walked away. And that brought me here to this room. At first glance, it looked like your average budget motel room. Burgundy bedspread, orange and brown wallpaper, carpet to match, a wooden dresser, and a box TV that probably predates me. It was nothing fancy, but for $50, who was I to complain? I tossed my bag on the bed and headed to the bathroom to clean up and wind down. Sure enough, white sheets were hanging over the mirrors, one over the vanity, another draped over a full-length mirror nailed to the back of the door. I stared for a moment. Maybe the mirrors were cracked and they just didn't want complaints. Fair enough. Better to leave them covered. I used the bathroom, brushed my teeth, changed clothes, and crawled into bed. It was the first time I'd been alone since my brother's funeral that afternoon, so I finally let the emotions hit me, all of it, and I cried hard into the motel pillow. At some point, I must have fallen asleep. Don't even remember getting comfortable. While I slept, I had the uneasy feeling of being watched. In my dream, I was in the motel room, watching myself sleep. It felt like I was seeing through someone else's eyes, and those eyes were moving closer. Step by step, toward me. The figure reached out toward my sleeping self, and just before contact, I woke up. I shot up, breathing heavily, searching the dark room. My hands fumbled for the lamp switch. Light came on. The room was empty. I exhaled slowly, just a dream. I rubbed my eyes and ran my hands over my face. Then I noticed my hands were covered in something dark. "What the?" I whispered, moving them under the light. Dark red coated my palms, and I recognized the smell. Metallic. Familiar. Blood. Double quotes. Great, I muttered, jumping out of bed. I used to get nosebleeds as a kid. Maybe it was back. The bedside lamp barely lit the room, so I used my phone flashlight to navigate to the bathroom and flip the light on. The sheet-covered mirror was still there, waiting. "Okay, I'll put it back after I clean up," I told myself. I pulled the sheet down, expecting broken glass, but no, it was a perfectly intact mirror. Just a bit dusty. My face, on the other hand, was a mess. Blood running from my nose, dried and smeared across my chin. I ran warm water and dabbed at my face with a washcloth. As I looked at my reflection, I thought I looked rough. Dark circles, dull skin, frizzy hair that could compete with the clerk's. It had been a long day, but then something strange happened. My reflection began to shift. The skin brightened, the dark circles faded, and my hair looked healthier, shinier even. I blinked, confused. Was I hallucinating from exhaustion? I finished wiping my face and rinsed the cloth. When I looked back up, my reflection smiled, but wasn't smiling. I touched my lips. My reflection mirrored me, but with a slight delay. I turned my head from side to side. Again, the reflection lagged by half a second. What is this? I muttered. Then the reflection spoke. You really do look rough. My mouth dropped open. The reflection tilted her head slightly, studying me. Did you just... How do you know what I was thinking? Of course I do, it replied. Coldly, I'm you. No, no, you're not, I whispered, reaching for the sheet. I'm going back to bed. Wait, I paused. It asked, how was the funeral? I didn't respond. Brave of you to go, all things considered. Still holding the sheet. I froze. Did you tell Mom and Dad it was your fault their favorite child died? I tore the sheet away from the counter. That's not true, I shouted. My reflection smiled again. Oh, but it is. He was driving to get you, wasn't he? After another fight with your boyfriend. On his way to you when the drunk driver hit him, he wanted to come. I said softly, staring at the sink. Did he want to leave his bed in the middle of the night to fix your drama? Were there no other options? If I had known, I whispered. If I knew what would happen. Well, now it's too late, it interrupted. My hands trembled. This is a nightmare, I told myself. Just a terrible dream. Goodbye, I said aloud and covered the mirror again. I rinsed my hands, steadied my breath, and walked to the door. Did I say you could leave? Voice called out. I turned back slowly, heart racing, arms shaking, breathing shallow. I pulled the sheet off. The reflection looked like me again, tired, messy hair, dull eyes. I exhaled in relief. Just a dream, I laughed quietly. I turned to leave, then noticed the sheet over the full-length mirror had fallen. In my panic, I must have knocked it off. I bent to pick it up. When I looked up, the reflection was back, grinning. Before I could react, it reached out of the mirror and grabbed me by the throat. I dropped the sheet and fought against it, but the grip was tight. Air escaped my lungs. My fingers clawed at the hand. It didn't let go. You shouldn't have talked back, it said coldly. Then its appearance shifted. My face but twisted. Its eyes turned red. I froze in horror. Your mind is a dark place, it whispered. I'm going to tear it apart from the inside. You're weak, gullible, perfect for me. Its grip tightened. Lucky for you, I need a host. I'll make it quick. It started pulling me into the mirror. No, no, I gasped. Out of options, it said, laughing. I remembered my phone, still in my pocket. With effort, I pulled it out and threw it full force at the mirror. The glass shattered. The creature shrieked. Its hand withdrew. I collapsed onto the floor, glass digging into my skin, breathing hard. Tears streaming. My head pounded. My nose bled again. Then I realized the pounding wasn't in my head. It was at the door. I stumbled to it and looked through the peephole. The motel clerk stood there, arms crossed, tapping her foot. I opened the door a crack. Yes, I said. She walked past me without a word and went straight to the bathroom. She saw the broken mirror, then turned to me. You idiot. I told you not to uncover them. I'm sorry, I whispered. She looked at me and asked, what did it? Say it knew about my brother. It said it wanted a host. She grabbed my bag and handed it to me. You have to leave. Now, the gate is still open and it will follow you. Run. But what about you? I asked. She shrugged. It's not afraid of me. It's afraid of you now. That makes it angry. What do you mean? She smirked. It used your worst fear and you fought back. That's what evil hates more than good, someone who resists. I nodded. She was right. I ran to my car, got in, and drove. I don't remember the trip back, just that I made it home. I passed out on my couch. When I woke up, no bruises, no blood, no cuts. I looked for the motel online. Nothing. No address. No charge on my card. It was like it never existed. Now I avoid mirrors. I use my phone camera when I need to check my face. I told my parents the truth. My brother died on his way to help me. They hugged me, cried, told me it wasn't my fault. The relief was real. My therapist says it was all a dream trauma showing. It was fear. Maybe it was, but I'll never forget what the motel clerk said. and I'll never stop checking behind me. Or fighting back.